Hey everyone, Karen the Warp Spinster here. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. If I have quite a few new followers, welcome. I'm happy that you found us and I hope that you will join us every week. Last week we did houses and we started with this wild and crazy kind of house, which in my head I wanted a bold print for the facade of the house and then the windows, etc., etc. Was not quite what I was looking for. So I went to solids because I'm a solids kind of gal. And so I did a blue house. And then because I didn't want to spend 6 hours showing people how it would look if I did more, I added onto it in Procreate. So I want to try just a little bit different method using applique, which, you know, is not going to strike anybody as bold new quilting. But let's do this yellow house. And I just happen to have yellows and golds pulled out for another project. So we can easily get 3 different shades and still do the stripes in between, but many of you commented that you didn't like the circles when I was placing them around the blue, but you did like them plus the triangles in as windows. So let's try that out, and it will be quicker today because I can just cut the solid pieces, sew the curves, but then we'll just fuse the windows on today. And then I want to try a different house, just something a little bit different for fun, and then we will leave houses at least for a while. I may be making some in the background, but you don't need to sit every week and watch me do houses. So we'll come up with something different this week, but we're going to continue with the houses this week. It seemed to be something that people responded well to. So let me pull out 3. Those are pretty close. So we'll do this and then this. So if you recall, we are starting with the darkest color at the bottom for the facade and then moving up to the lightest. But for the windows, we're starting with the lightest, moving up to the darker. And then I decided I wanted to ground them a little bit. Here, put some more weight down below. So I'm just going to cut some narrow pieces for these sections. I'll have to find some stripes, like that will be difficult in my stash. And then we'll think about doing the windows. I have an idea, but I think it'll be for the next house we do, which will be a bit different than this one. So let me get some pieces cut for this, and then we'll add in the dividers between the stories. I have 3 pieces here which are quite long and they will be shorter than that in the end, but I wanted to make sure I had enough because I want this to be a fair amount taller than this blue piece. So I've cut them plenty wide because I want a little leeway when I insert the striped, I don't know what we're going to call them. Let's call them balconies for lack of a better word. It's just a line between the stories, but you know, they kind of look like railings with the balcony, right? So let's start with this one and make it a pretty simple curve. This isn't very wide here, so because there's not much here and it won't shift very much across the width here, I'm going to cut. This is not a true color. I'm trying to get it to be a true color here. It's better. And then I will sew this curve. I'll put a link. Thinking about how I'm doing this. I will put a link down in the description for how I do these improv curves. But it's just cut the same curve, right sides together, needle down, go slowly. Make sure your 1/4 inches that you're measuring is at the needle and not the front of the presser foot, and just go slowly. I prefer to have convex on the top, so I've marked this so when I flip it over, I can tell where I need to place this edge. Put my needle down and away I go. I know all of you are shouting, wait, where's the stripe? Here's the stripe. So first of all, I will cut this to match and stitch that, and then I will add this on. And it may or may not be the same curve. We'll see what happens. Anything can happen today, as you can well see at this point. Oh, golly, gonna be a long day. I've trimmed the seam and pressed toward the stripe because that black stripe under this light yellow would be too noticeable. So now I can cut either the same curve or I can vary it a little, and I'm making sure that I still have my 1/4 inch for the seam in there. So I think maybe I'll cut this first because there's enough there now to shift it. So do that and match it up here. I'm being very careful of my fingers. If this makes you nervous, you can use a protective glove. Having cut off the tip of my finger once, I am very careful, and if I'm unsure, I will get a glove. Okay, now we made that. I'm going to do that again because this was wonky, and while, as you know, I've nothing against wonky, in this case, yeah, like I said, it's going to be a long day. I hope this won't be a long video. I will try to edit out any more odd things that I do. Okay, now it's straighter, and I'm not really got a concave anywhere that I can do. Yeah, this one will be. All right. So I'll get this sewed. I'm going to put a wider stripe in here between these 2 stories. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be trimming some from up here and maybe some from here. But I can't trim any of the center after the fact, so I think that's about where I want it. And I will start cutting about here, do a curve, and just basically the same thing I just did. All right, that one is finished too, and now I want to think about how tall I want these to be. So this is the blue house. It's out here. This is the blue house, and I want the yellow house to be quite a bit taller. Probably not twice as tall, but a bit taller. So I want to trim this off, and I want to, oh, I do a black strip up here, don't I? Okay, I will also add that in, and we'll do a thin one up here, but I want that is crooked at the top, I think. I will do just a crooked little bit here. Now, if you are not yet very comfortable with doing curves, then you could do just a curve that has a C curve, not an S curve. Because this is a narrow width, then it makes the curves pretty steep if you are doing, say, an S curve. So when you're starting out, you might want something wider and just do a simple C curve rather than an S. Just if the C curves are, or the curves are still a little worrisome for you, shall we say. All right, so I'll put a black piece up here. I really want that to be more crooked than that. Cleaning up my curve here. And then down below, oh, it's a little weird to have the foundation be narrower than the top, and architecturally, it's probably a bad idea, but I sort of like the wonky effect of that. All right, so I'm going to do that, and then when it comes to the windows and doors, I'm going to just fuse some gray, 3 different grays, and maybe a white in there, onto some fusible, and then we'll just kind of cut those into wild and woolly shapes. You know, as I was doing it this way, I was thinking part of what, I don't know if it distressed me, but that I think threw my eye off is that this very busy print was then made further busy by having it cut up and put back together. So I'm wondering if you had a good size print. This one may be just too small and busy for my eye anyway. If you had just solid pieces of a fabric or 3 different fabrics, whatever, and then did the applique method that we're going to do today, that maybe that would be better. Maybe we'll give that a try, do at least one story of it and see what happens. Anyway, going off on a tangent. I told you it's going to be a long day. So I will put the black piece up here and then get started on preparing the grays for the windows and door. All right, I have the black top roof. I don't want a flat roof. I live in Iowa. They're bad news. So I'm hoping I can make it crooked. I think what I put together won't be a problem. I just have to do the piecing correctly. But I probably don't want it to be that wide either. But I do want it to be wonky, so that when the snow melts, it doesn't all collect, or the snow doesn't collect and collapse. Okay, now I think before I start doing the windows and door thing, I want to trim this because clearly they aren't the same widths, which, you know, in another world would be fine, but not for what we're doing here. So I can either trim it straight down, I can do curves as I did in the blue piece, but I think, partly because I've got selvage over here, but also because this is narrow enough already, because remember, I've got 1/4 of an inch on either side that's coming off for seams, that I want to make this straight. You know what I mean by straight. Not curved. And I guess I could also trim the rooftop, couldn't I? All right, do I want this straight or not? We're going to make it not straight for the moment. And we'll see what happens then later on. And we will switch it here. You can see that I've got some stuff to trim here, but we will trim it from the balcony down instead of making the whole thing taper down. See how that works. Okay, so we'll have to do a panoramic view of this house. And at this point, we can determine also how tall we want it to be, because we're going to be putting doors and windows at the bottom of it. So here's the top, here's the bottom. That's plenty long. Let's say we want it to be about like that. So I'll trim it about here. Yeah, sorry, you can't see it, but I'm just trimming off the edge there. Okay, so now we can retire the blue one for a moment. And for the bottom floor of this one, the ground floor, not the garden level. Ooh, we don't have any garden levels here. Well, this is kind of garden level, isn't it? I just want a long, narrow window on the ground floor, and that's going to be the lightest color. I have a piece here, and it is about the right height, actually. So all I have to do is decide how wonky I want it to be and how narrow. And this is the fun thing about having wonky. This isn't exactly improv piecing, but it's kind of improv quilting, right? Improv applique. Now, another advantage I can see for doing this is that when I do the, oops, better make it shorter because I have to have a 1/4 inch down here. When I do the stitching around it, that can be the window frame. So I can do it so that that stitching is invisible, but I can also make it the frame. I can also do some stitching to put panes in the window there. So I'm going to fuse this, use a pin to, and it's going to stick to me until probably New Year's Day. And then I can fuse that on there. And I'm kind of doing it step by step, fusing as I go, because I want to kind of see exactly how the windows are going to be in relation to each other. And if I don't fuse them, they'll move. They just will. See, we have some little tiny strips we could use somewhere else too. All right, now, next level, we have one long one and a couple of shorter ones of different sizes. So first thing I'm going to do is put this roughly in half, sort of. And then this one is probably way too tall, but this one is going to be sort of like this. And because there are 2 sets of windows across the width, this has to be a fairly narrow piece. So, sorry, I'm flinging things around a lot here today. This one's up there. I think it's too wide because we have to have the 1/4 inch on either side, of course. So I'm going to trim this down some more, and it will give me narrow pieces that I can use somewhere else in the village. Okay, we're going to have this, that at the top. Now we have this other piece that we're going to cut into 2 pieces. And this one needs to be pretty narrow. I'm going to put a little bit of a curve into that. It's kind of wonky. That over here. And then this one, well, I don't have to use a ruler on all of them. I'm not piecing these, so I can be as wild and crazy as I wish. And sometimes I'm wilder and crazier than others. All right, it's maybe too tall, maybe too wide. Actually, I kind of like it. This might be a little bit too wide for our purposes. I might curve this a little bit to kind of match the curve below it. And maybe make this angled. Yes, to me this is more fun than piecing the things because I can do wild things. Okay, so those are those 3, and then the top we have 2 round pieces, different sizes. So I'm also going to cut those and fuse those, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, here is, I won't say our finished piece. Let me do it this way because the black is, I'm not seeing the black top very well. I'm not sure how I feel about this tapering here. I might change that. It might turn into a bit more of a curve and definitely narrower at the bottom. It looks kind of halfway right now, but that's doable. And let's say we put this next to the blue one. It starts to look more like a city street then, doesn't it? The neighborhood. Now, I have class. This is my last class with Sheila today, so That's going to be it for the moment. But I do want to play with another idea, and I will probably do it in Procreate, at least first. And that is for a house that's going to come into Theo's neighborhood, and it's going to be Tim's house. So I want you to think about what Tim I might be thinking of, and then what the house might look like. And share that below in the comments, by the way. I'd love to see what you all come up with, and I'll see what I can do in Procreate, because I don't want to make this video too long or belabor the point any. I'm really liking that the tall windows there. What do you think? I'm liking it. And I think the blue one is probably going to get cut into a straight line rather than a curve, but not necessarily parallel lines for the sides. All right. Can't get it much larger than that. You won't be able to see what I'm doing without also seeing my messy workspace here. All right. You have to turn your head. Sorry about making you strain your neck. Massage therapist in me is sympathizing with you. Don't do it for very long. Okay. I like it. I do. Oh, and this is a white window up here because there's a light in a window, and it is a starving artist working away in the attic. Maybe it's Joe March writing My Beth or something, just working away in the attic room. That's it for the moment. I'll be back in a little bit. Think about Tim's house. I did a little playing on Procreate with what I had in mind for Tim's house, and I'm thinking of Tim Burton. Now, I know nothing about Tim Burton's actual house. It may be filled with light and beautiful bright colors. So I'm thinking of this as Tim's house as it might appear in one of his films, which is, to me, lots of black and white and gray. But I wanted to put in a little spot of color because he's up there working in the attic, and his mind is just so creative. I actually might put a very bright, busy kind of fabric, because just imagine his brain is overflowing and wheels are rolling and all kinds of things are going on in his brain. So this is just a rough kind of thing that I might do with blacks and grays and different prints and patterns. I would not definitely do it in all black, but I thought that might be kind of a fun thing to do for the neighborhood too. So this week we did a tall yellow house to go with our blue house. Let me bring this out a bit. I don't think my work table is too messy anyway. And it's kind of hard to see where these are, and then we've got, maybe Tim's in the neighborhood somewhere too. And that is going to be it for this week, I think. I hope all of you are thinking about the kind of houses you would want to put in your neighborhood. Don't forget we have the wild and crazy one too, if anyone wants to have probably the eccentric old lady that I think my neighbors probably think I am. Maybe that would be my house in the neighborhood. At any rate, that is it for this week. My last week in Sheila's class, we just finished up with the class. And here's the piece that I have been working on, first of all, here in Procreate. And then as I am working on it, starting to put it together, I still have lots of shadow circles to do yet, and there are some strips in the background, of course, that I need to add, but I'm getting there. And while we were doing class today, Sheila's okay with us sketching and doing stuff while she's talking. So I designed another piece today too that I want to put together. I have so many to make, yikes. So that's it. Thanks for joining me and putting up with me as I build this neighborhood. And I'm hoping, and share with me what your Tim house looks like if you were thinking of some other Tim. I'd love to hear what that's about. Next week, I have something else in mind. As always, we'll see how that goes. And I hope I see you then. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.